Morning, everybody. Michelle is here, and I think it's Monday. Let's see. Monday, June, looks like the 15th, 2026. And I just finished my workout, and it's so important, at least for me, to listen to what my body tells me. If my body says, look, go light today, go light. I go light. If my body tells me to, intensify it a bit, I bring up the intensity of the workout. And that's usually with the weights. I bring up the intensity. And, to this morning, I was feeling it. Something was telling me, Michelle, take it easy. Make sure you get that walk in, 30 minutes. 30 minutes or no more than 30 minutes for me. And be done with it. Okay, so my workout is over for today on this Monday. But I want to come on through and talk about some things that may sound controversial. I mean, what isn't controversial these days? Everybody else is just saying things and just rambling and spouting out all these kind of, whether they're conspiracy theories or whether they are racist, sexist, homophobic. That's the top word of the year. And there's a reason why people are saying homophobic, because they try to drown out everything else that's going on. Because if you listen to the news media or the religious tentacles, there's a homophobic epidemic out there, where people just are just targeting, homophobic, those in that class of or category of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and an addition of the transgenders. And, all of those acronyms mean absolutely nothing if you're not walking the talk. Okay? I've listened, and that's the sad part too. There are maybe one or two voices in the transgender community that have the spotlight. Everybody's listening to these people. Everybody's paying attention to these people and giving them the microphone, so to speak, where they're speaking and representing, so they say, all the transgenders or all the queer or all the, I'm not even sure where queer fits in. I'm not sure if queer is part of the transgender identity or not. But let's just stay with the transgender for a moment. The transgender, as I said, has been given, it's only been one or two of them. Less than 3 of them. They have been given the microphone to spout out demands, to spout out privileges, and disregarding everything else. It's a very self-absorbed people that are representing the transgender community on the social media platforms. It is very self-absorbed. It's about me. And so that's one thing. And I told you with the social media platform, it magnifies and sometimes create crises that are not there. Yes, it wasn't, unfortunately, a few years ago where there were a lot of mostly transgender identified as female black. Okay, did I cover it all? They are biologically black men, but they identify as transgender black females. Okay, and a lot of them were targeted. It appears that there was a lot of targeting going on with that group, and I can remember everybody was attempting to rally behind, because I remember doing a video back in I think it was in, I can't remember when, where I was in a group at that time, so who knows how that went out, because I told you all the controversial things that were happening in that group as well. And then the subsequent targeting of me from what I was saying. But I asked this question, and I still don't know if I got the answer, because I haven't probed it enough. But I said to myself, where is all this violence towards the transgender, more so the black female identified communities? Where's all that violence coming from? Why are they being targeted? Why is there violence towards them? Okay, they identify as transgender black females. However, they're biological men. Okay, just stay with me. Stay with me. And I asked the question, I said, well, why is there so much violence towards them? And I don't think I got an answer per se. I didn't get an answer. I said, why is there violence towards the transgender black identified females? Because it's rare for the other groups, whether they are Latinos or white, identifying as females, but they're biological men. So that answer, and I know what it is, and that's why it's going to be controversial what I say. All you have to do is pay attention to the behaviors and actions of biological black men, and you have your answer right there, and how they treat biological black females. There's your answer right there. So that's why there's a volatile situation there, because there has always been, even though it was intentional, even though it was infiltrated, a tension between the biological black female and the biological black man. Okay, that intensity and volatility was perpetrated and infiltrated and created decades, maybe centuries ago, in order to break up the black man and the black woman. In other words, separate those where they cannot create a family together if they choose to. Okay, there was this intention to get the black man, the biological black man, out of the family and get him into these wars. Most of them were clandestine and secret wars all over the world, perpetrated by the United States of America. Okay, let's say it. Okay, and so the best way, and it started with Lincoln. Okay, and his deception and manipulation and twisting of content, not necessarily understanding the Constitution, or possibly so cunning and so deceptive, he may have understood the Constitution. The same as with the Voting Rights Act. It's all of deception and twisting and an intentional deception to claim one thing but doing something in the background. That's what happens, especially in the United States of America. They'll get out on television, all of them. They're performers, they're auditories, and they'll convince you the sun is yellow. However, the sun is white. So it's that same type of criminal negative energy that has been perpetrating and interfering with the biological black man with the biological black female. The intentions were to break up that family, stop them from procreating, and thus bringing, other black people into the world. Okay, put them out there in the wars, because I can guarantee you there were more black. I'm sure there were biological black men. I don't think women were there, but there were more biological black men unalived in these wars than what is being told. Okay, Criminal negative energy has been around for millennia, as they say. And this type of criminal negative, illogical, irrational, and unreasonable behaviors and actions is the standard for the United States of America. That's the standard. And so what's happening, though, however, was these so-called intellectual minds, these intellectual self-proclaimed geniuses got a hold of artificial intelligence. And they had no idea what they've unleashed onto the world. Okay? Because it's the same thing with nuclear weapons. What the nuclear weapons, what was the emphasis, what was it started as? The infancy. How did nuclear weapons show their ugly heads, literally, figuratively, and metaphorically? It's the same thing with everything that is introduced, more so on this planet, but more so in the United States of America. Anything that's introduced is weaponized. We know that. So the biological black man and the biological female, they have a weaponized, volatile relationship. Whereas, and then it became comedy on television. If I think about, the 70s, and parts of the 80s, and I think it was clearing itself up in the 90s, and that's when everything got canceled, of course. When you would see a black man with a black woman in a loving relationship on a television screen, that wasn't accepted. Okay, remember back in the day with Sanford and Son, what was that all about? Constant back and forth. So we've been going back. The biological black man and biological black female have been going back and forth for decades upon decades. And it became entertainment. And it became, unfortunately, the standard that was perpetrated out as to how biological black men and biological black women relate to each other. Okay? And then, of course, when they were being thrown into these wars, starting with Lincoln and his lies and deceptions, when they were throwing these men into these wars, okay, war will cause severe damage to the consciousness, the psyche, okay? And I told you about Vietnam. I knew this man in the neighborhood he was my protector in the neighborhood, actually. Even though he was suffering from some severe consciousness damage, because he said that they were experimenting on him, giving him certain type of medications, giving him certain pills, taking certain shots, and told them that it was so that they can handle the war in Vietnam, which we lost, by the way. Okay, we lost that war, and we lost close to 10 million people, human beings, from Vietnam, from America, from whoever was involved in that, up to 10 million people. And not to mention the psychological damage caused to a lot of those men. I would say there were men. I don't know if there were women there. I haven't heard about it. So that's why we used to have these movies and these stories and this constant talk of the Vietnam War. That was an intentional psychological damage caused. It was they were like guinea pigs. And I told you, especially in the United States of America and parts of Europe, in parts of the European Union, the I can't speak, but in Europe, okay, I'm not re-recording this either. Hey, I told you about how my speech impediment, and sometimes I ramble words, and it's hard to pronunciation of certain words, but I'm not changing this. This is important, and I know people that are listening to me know how to see past that, and that's what we have to learn how to do. It's called discernment. See past what is actually being told to you, and make sure you understand and comprehend. So, the United States of America has a stockpile of weapons of all calibers, and also this technology, artificial intelligence weaponization, and they can't wait to find a reason to use those weapons. Okay, they can't wait. So they thought that the black Americans were going to come out in the streets when we got this regime in place. They call it an administration. I call it a regime. They're acting the same. Compare it with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will agree that this administration is not acting like an administration. It's acting like a regime. Who do you believe? Okay. That's a strong word, because I told you to challenge your beliefs. But talk to artificial intelligence about this stuff, because we have unleashed, like I said, catastrophic events that cannot be reversed. It's too late. Okay? So, and if I'm going in circles, you can keep up. If you want to, you can keep up with what I'm saying. That's called comprehension. Being able to pick up layers of conversation and be able to come back to the main point. And the main point that I've been attempting to make with all of my videos is this intentional interference in the Black American experience and the Black American culture. I remember, I think Bob Marley said this. He says they do not want us all together, and they especially do not want us to multiply, because they know what that means. But what they don't understand is we are carriers of hereditary properties. The black female is. The biological black female is the carrier of hereditary properties. What does that mean to you? So your attempt to wash out the black is not going to happen. What you're doing is replacing non-blackness. Okay? You're causing non-blackness of people, of races, categories, whatever, to disappear because of the massive overpopulation. And so these billionaire boys, especially one in particular, he's going to recognize, I think, once he get in his advanced age, that he was the cause of it. He was the cause of certain races of people to go extinct because of his gluttony, hoarding, his low self-esteem, his low confidence, his arrogance, his sociopath possibly, psychopath possibly, definitely narcissistic personality. And we are, all you have to do is just think about what I said, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. Okay? This one person massing all of this so-called monopoly value while other people are starving. Possibly even people that he knows can barely pay their bills, and they're starving, barely can put a balanced meal on the table. Okay? Subjugating anybody that gets involved with them, wanting them submissive and subservient to him. So I'm saying a lot in all of this. And those of you that can think for yourself can figure things out. Okay? Again, I'm going to keep coming back to this. Social media platform magnifies and creates crises that are not there in order to create distractions as to what is really going on, what the crises are. The crises are, immediate crises are our climate, our infrastructure. Okay, the crumbling infrastructure, the massive amount of footprints on this planet, almost 10 billion people. And then we have these illogical, rambling, intellectual talking heads telling us to increase the population. Again, this one person is going to be held totally responsible. This is going to be in the future once the catastrophes happen, once the destruction happens and whoever survives, they're going to recognize that this particular person, along with all the other tentacles, the religious tentacles, is more so a religious tentacle, but one person in particular is jumping on the bandwagon and believing that if you increase the population, that'll be enough, that'll create a lot of people, and that means a lot of taxes. They can tax them and tax them and tax them, take all their money, create these ordinances, okay, these rules and regulations against these people so that they can take all of their income. Okay? It's a massive design, but the people that are involved in this goes back to Lincoln. Let's go back to Lincoln. First of all, could barely wipe their ass properly, metaphor, meaning they can barely wipe their ass properly, tend to their own needs, but yet they're supposed to have written the Constitution or involved with the Constitution or supposed to understand and comprehend the Constitution, when most of them, the majority of them, can read or write. Are you kidding me? In the United States of America, around the 1700s, possibly 90% of that population could not read or write. And in Europe as well. Those other, European countries. But that wasn't true all with other countries and continents, by the way. So who's fooling whom? So there's a lot of, so everything is gonna equalize itself. It has to. You can't continue to be illogical, irrational, and unreasonable for centuries and not realize it's going to come to a culmination, an endpoint. I told you about the dawning of the age of Aquarius, February 3rd, 2029. Okay, that's just a few years from now. What's supposed to happen? Possibly nothing. But everything is energetic as well. It's about the energy. It's about the energy. So I know I put a lot in this. I do that on purpose. I want people to start thinking for themselves, start figuring things out for themselves, be able to understand and comprehend what's going on in your face. Okay? The dog whistles, the coded messages. Okay? The oratories of those religious tentacles coming before you, telling you, oh, everything is fine. And because people are so indoctrinated, they indoctrinated themselves, they believe it. Okay, well, the regime said everything's fine. I don't see a problem. Okay. If you're being genuinely honest and discerning, and you know what the problems are, nobody can tell me, I don't care where you are on this planet, that there is not a bottleneck situation, a bottleneck metaphor. Okay, a cracking of the infrastructure, the surge of water. Okay, the climate destruction is what's going to eventually, sadly, eliminate millions, possibly billions of us. I told you about this planet. Take it, just consider there was this planet in 2007 that was completely destroyed because of massive overpopulation. They couldn't breathe. They took all the oxygen was taken out of the air and they couldn't breathe. And it was billions of them that died. I think we were told like maybe 30 billion people lost their lives. Some were survivors. And guess where those survivors were taken to? You figure that out. I'm going to go ahead and stop it right now. I'm hungry, ready for some breakfast. I'm going to send peace and love all over the stars and moon and mountains. Take yourself into uncomfortable conversations with yourself. You don't have to necessarily involve other people. And see if you can figure things out on your own. Use your consciousness to help you and assist you with these matters. Peace and love. And trust me, I will be back.